Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Kissy. Welcome to my channel. So I think with all of this earth energy that we're dealing with, we have Mars and Venus and Mercury in Capricorn, the Sun in Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, as is Capricorn. I feel like, and some other placements, of course, in Taurus and Virgo that are in earth energies. I feel like the topic of money, finance, investments, long-term structures, and then you add to that the subject of innovation with, of course, the Sun in Aquarius. So it's like bringing innovation into these structures, but also the topic of land and the purchase of land, and like what it's like agriculture, going back to the starting point, or going back to, the foundation. So, of course, as in Aries, as most Aries, we tend to kind of play out the role, as the spirit in the cycle of, let's call it, in the story that's unfolding. The story that's unfolding in the collective, the going into 5D and that change, that shift that we're kind of experiencing. It's like, okay, so we understand with Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius, we understand that the old world is done, right? Meaning the way things have been done, everything we've learned, like all of it. It gave us a starting point of like, okay, this is everything that you've accumulated. Now, what can be reused? In other words, we don't have to throw away anything. A lot of things didn't work. A lot of things did not pan out as planned. In other words, like an accumulation of experiences, it's like, well, what were these experiences for? What was the point of all this? You can't make sense of these experiences maybe just yet. It doesn't mean that that energy of experience isn't going to be useful in the future. There could be an accumulation of assets, of things, of material things, and you're like, what is the point? So let's say, like myself, I used to be a bookworm, right? And I had books and piles of books everywhere. Eventually, every time I moved, I was carrying around box loads of books. Now, is the information useless? No. But the material, I ended up giving it away, selling it, eventually lightening the load for my travels. And then I can get the books on Audible or online versions. It just became more accessible, obviously, with technology, to have the same access to things without the physical burden or weight of it. So we lighten our load in ways that make sense, but there are certain things that you need tangibly. Like, obviously, I can't cook just with a recipe online without having the tools I need to cook, right? So it's like, okay, so we can get things like recipes and ideas which translate and are useful, but we don't have to have a book, a cookbook that shows us how to do these recipes. So we can do away with that, but then you need the pots and pans to cook on, right? So now then it comes the utility and the need for certain things to make your life easier and better. So, with that being said, you take into account all things. Now I am like in the center between generations. In other words, my parents' age went so far, And then I have been diligently, since a child, kind of seeking on how I was going to build on what they've already done, on what they've already created, or at least a trajectory of the vision, of the goal, of where they wanted the family legacy to go, right? So you do everything by the book. You do all the things you think you're supposed to do. You go about it in the ways that you've been taught to do them. And you end up in a place where you're like, I went as far as I can go with it. And everywhere I go, there's like a gatekeeper, they would call it, right? Then you look at the future generation, my children. Now I see where I'm getting limitations, where I'm being limited, where certain doors aren't opening for me that supposedly were supposed to open. Like, for example, you go to college and you get your business degree, and you're told that with a business degree, you can have these opportunities. So when you go and venture into these opportunities based on your degree and based on experience, certain doors are supposed to open for you. But now we have technology, and your application is just another random paper in the system. And that system, based on certain words that you don't put in your resume, based on certain words you didn't put, doesn't go through to even be seen by a person. So now you have to be kind of educated in things that in the past generations you didn't have to know. But then you see that the future generation might know a certain strategy in technology, but they're missing a foundational know-how based on the lack of education, or how education is kind of bypassing real necessary critical thinking ways of doing things. Everything is scores and assessments, and as long as the school has an average, number of students passing, they get their grants, they get their funding. So their interest there is not to solidify the foundation of the students, even though that's what it says as their creed, their motto, or their vision, in their vision board or whatever. That has not been my personal experience. And I've been to, District A's, where, in other words, the school have been assessed, at least within the county, as considered, above average. And then I've been in less than average school districts as well. So I've had the experience of range in all elementary, middle school, and high school. And from what I see, and from my own roots, knowing that things were definitely easier for me than they were for my parents being educated. At the age of when my parents were being educated, their teachers had the ability to hit them with a ruler on their hand. Like, physical punishment was allowed by the teacher. The teacher was entrusted for that, right? And parents kind of agreed that disrespect warrants physical discipline. Disrespect and a lack of attention was dealt with by physical violence. Now, my parents evolved from that, and they agreed. We don't think that is, appropriate. We don't want our child being harmed or hurt by anyone. But as the parents, as the disciplinarians, we're going to ensure you understand what your responsibilities are, and you need to trust that us as your parents, we are guiding you. So what we say goes. You don't get to question that. You don't get to argue that, and you don't get to do whatever the hell you want, because we're the parents. So that was the understanding I grew up with. Now, did that mean that we just followed everything we were told to do and that it was a strict household? No. It just meant that we knew that if we wanted some freedom outside of what was already enforced, we would have to either do some extra work or show a sign of responsibility beyond what we've already been given. That means before you even ask, whatever you've already been entrusted to do as your responsibilities was already done. And if you wanted some extra, you better come with a good plan. You better come with, where you're going, who you're going to be with, what time are you coming home, like how much is it going to cost. You needed to have a plan because they were not going to figure it out for you. So if you wanted certain freedoms, you wanted to go out with your friends and hang out, you needed to figure out how it was going to get paid, how much it was going to cost if you were going to ask your parents for the money, where you were going, how you were getting there, what time you're getting back. Have the conversation with the parties involved. If your friend says, yeah, my mom is going to take us, then you made sure that mom was going to be able to pick you up or drop you off before you even asked your parents. You had to have a plan. That's how it was for me. Now, again, once you learn the rules, you can bend the rules. You can even challenge the limits of the rules. But you also knew, at least then, that was something you did, I guess you could say in baby steps. Like, it wasn't, like, you would know that, okay, I'm not allowed to stay out late. But if I'm going to stay out late, I'm obviously not going to be gone 24 hours. I'm obviously not going to be gone without letting my parent know where I'm going to be, or oops, this occurred, so I'm going to stay out, at my friend's house. Whatever the case might be, whatever the excuse, there was still, so breaking a rule, breaking a boundary still came with a sense of responsibility to ensure that the person in charge was rest assured that they didn't have to micromanage my choices, my actions. So that was kind of like the understood rule, was like, don't make parenting you difficult. Don't make parenting you challenging. Don't make parenting you extra work. Like, that was the mindset growing up. It was like, that's kind of like the flow that was there. It was the breadwinner had to have a peaceful mind, no extras, so that they can continue to do breadwinning. The household coordinator, let's call it, the parental that was managing the home, the manager, had to ensure that the subordinates didn't influence negatively the provider, and the provider only had to participate either when the manager could not manage or had some kind of issue with the provider. In other words, everything was like a business, but it was a household. But that's how you learn structure. You learn it at home first. And when you go into business, you see that with your CEO. How often does an employee deal with the CEO? And do the managers even allow you to get to the CEO? They do everything to prevent you from bothering the CEO. They'll tell you, no, talk to your supervisor first. Then go to your manager. Then go to, HR. And then perhaps you can talk to the CEO. It depends on the CEO, how friendly, how open, how visible the CEO is with every part of their organization. So in that same way, business was at least, from what I gather, structured in that way. Schools were structured in that way. You never just dealt with the principal. The principal dealt with the staff and the teachers. Rarely did the principal get involved with the students on a personal basis unless it was necessary. The chain of command went up to the principal. You never really saw principal walking around really understanding the students, having a one-on-one. Why? Because he's delegating different responsibilities. He's dealing with the district. He's dealing with regional. He's dealing with the higher ups. So everything has this big chain of command and this structure. So now, in the bigger scope in society, those structures are changing because our way of living is changing, but also the way that things were getting done when there was ethics and integrity and kind of accountability, technology has minimized or has limited either it's limited access to people because of it's like you miss the human being in between. In other words, if you want to engage your child and let's say you're moving into a new town, you go to the school, you meet the administrator, you walk through to meet the teachers. I mean, there was a process where you would be introduced into the school and you would understand every part and who does what and whatever. Now it's done online. Now you don't even know who your child's principal is. You don't even know who your child's teachers are. You don't even know what the school looks like. Unless you're asked to go and unless your child is involved. Because while my children were younger, they were more involved in school activities. As they got older, they didn't want to participate in those activities. So it's not like I was involved, after school this and after school that. There was none of that. But that goes to show with structure and community and the importance of the structure for the child. The child needs a physical reality structure on how to move, how to behave. It feels like on the one hand, technology has made it so easy to do nothing that people do nothing or can't do anything. Where out of boredom, a child would have learned how to work on a car if it was a masculine or interested in vehicles. They would learn to play sports. They would learn to talk, to just sit down on a stairwell and just have conversations. Conversations that matter. Because it's not based on TikTok and just stupidity. It was based on their feelings. It was based on their experiences. And it was based on curiosity. Let's go check out the woods. Let's go see what's out there. Let's explore. Let's figure out what we can do. It's almost like that's becoming obsolete somehow. Again, maybe it's just my personal experience, but my kids are all air signs. So they're very much in their head. They're very much, strong thinkers. Independent thinkers. And I love that. I love that about each and every one of them in their own creative ways, right? All three of them. And what I've noticed is amongst their friends and amongst the way that they engage and how they, not only how they socialize, but the things that they take enjoyment in are pretty much the same things that I would in terms of like, I don't want to go out to the playground and play and jump around in the hot sun. I just don't. But I say that's because I'm adulting now. I don't have the energy for that. It's not fun to do that for me at this point in my life. But I don't know why for my children it's not fun. It's like, wait a second. What's the like, why was it fun for my generation to go outside and play? Why isn't it fun for this generation to go outside and play? Well, because there's so much more to do in the comfort of your own space. You don't have to get up and do anything. No one's bothering you to do anything. No one's needing you to do anything. So it's like, and then all you have is the comfort to just enjoy what you're doing. So you're playing a video game online, you're watching a show on Netflix, or you're on Instagram or social media, you're, chatting with your friends on the phone, FaceTiming with them. So it's like, why do I have to get up? Why do I have to do anything? Oh, I'm hungry, let me just order some Uber, and it's going to just knock on my door, and all I got to do is go get a, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God. So when you think of that, it's like, okay, where is this leading us? What is this doing to our society if that's where we are with life? Because when life gets really comfortable, we get very complacent. And even though we can be very creative mentally, even though we can be very creative, even in the things that we do for fun, it lacks a structure. That creativity lacks a structure or a way of making it useful in the physical reality, bringing it to society. It's like, okay, so the hours you spent online and the hours you lay in bed thinking and the hours you're chatting it up with your friends and the hours that you're conveniently experiencing your life, what are you doing with that? Where is that going? What is it leading to? What can you cultivate from that? What can you create from that? I'm not judging it like that you can't do anything. You can get ideas from watching things. You don't like all in your head. You can have a whole amazing world in your head, but does it matter if you're not bringing it into the physical? If you're not sharing it in a way that is serving or elevating or securing your place in the world? So, So, maybe this segment we'll call it Kissy's Mistakes. Financially or in terms of investment. Just a few little tips for you Gen Zers. Maybe even my own generation. Just a conversation. So, you think of legacy, family legacy, and all you're thinking about is, how do I ensure that my family's needs are met? And that they're able to live in a space where they can thrive, where they have access to what they need, and where they are able to produce the energy necessary to thrive independently on their own. From my standpoint, I can look at it and be like, well, you need to think and have a plan, and you need to at least have an intention of what you want to be or do. You must actually be doing the thing you say you want to become. You don't have to wait for a degree to tell you can do it. You like doing hair? Do the hair now. You want to be into whatever it is, do it now. I always liked writing. I didn't say I'm going to wait till I go to college and then become a writer. I was writing since I learned how to write. Short stories, little books, whatever that was. You're already doing what you love to do. The goal is, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you do that is your thing? It doesn't matter what that thing is. But if you're doing it consistently, for sale or not, and I say like that because most people think that this is about making the money. And it's not about making the money, but because we think it's about making the money, we forego the things that we would do normally and completely ignore that it's in that energy that you're doing that thing, whether people see it or not, whether it's being sold or not. So let's say you draw because you draw. You don't think anything of it, but you do that 80% of your day. But because you don't think it's valuable, because you don't think, and the reason you don't think it's valuable, the reason you may not think it's what sustains you, is because you've been trained to believe that the money that you get is the only thing that gives you currency. It's like you're not being sustained because your bills are paid. You're not being sustained because someone's taking care of you. You're not being sustained because you're working to sustain yourself. You're being sustained because you're actively doing things even when you think you're not doing anything. The thing you do that looks like you're doing nothing, there's a meme with Lisa Simpson, I think it is, where she's like meditating, and it's, I don't remember how it goes, but it's like what people think I'm doing, meaning like people think I'm just sitting here being a bum, but then in the inner realm all you see is all this creativity, right? Well, even when you're doing nothing, you're doing something. The point is that eventually the stagnation of nothingness has to shift into something. And that action has to come forth. The action that comes forth could either be sharing those ideas, communicating everything you're going through or what you're experiencing. It's like it has to come out of you, one way or the other. It comes out creatively, it comes out in your actions, it comes out in your vibe. So whatever comes out of you is what was being filled into you by virtue of what you've thought of, what you've felt, and what you've been exploring, experiencing, actively or inactively. So, I know I veered off there for a minute on something different, but so I'm kind of like in between these two generations, right? The old school generation that lacks, unfortunately lacks creativity because they've been conditioned to feel that you work for money and that's basically it. You work to get the small pleasures in life. It's almost like it's a mindset of live to die. Live to eventually die. It's like the mindset is I'm gonna die, so it's like it's already like pre-planned or it's already thought of that way. And I'm not saying that that's just my parents' generation. It's kind of like, maybe, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or whatever, but it's kind of like a very negative outlook on life where it's like it doesn't have a higher vision. It doesn't have an inspired legacy mindset. It's like the legacy is like My retirement money, it's like, when I die, you'll get this inheritance. And it's like your 401k, it's like, it might be, a small plot of land that dispersed, it's not like a big thing in the larger scope of life. It's like, legacy is about leaving behind the stepping stones for the next generation for their path of growth to be more stable than yours, to be kind of paved, easier. It's like, when you hear about stories about my parents' generations, when we were growing up, we had to walk miles and miles to school, and, sometimes with our shoes broken, or, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like, wow, the physical struggle was real. And then you grow up and you think, I don't have it as bad as them. We have cars, and, I didn't have to walk. I chose to walk. It was like, it's a choice. Okay, fine. You know what I mean? So it's like luxuries of life. It's really just, how much easier can life be? Right? I think that's what innovation ultimately is about, is making life easier for the next generation, or at least based on the complaints of the previous generation, or the lack of the previous generation, kind of forced to ensure that these things were had in the next generation. Because it's like, well, I grew up like this, or I didn't have these things, so I'm definitely going to get these things. I want to make sure that we have these things. So it's supposed to progress. But when the dream is to own a home, and let's say your parents owned a home, and then you may have owned a home like I did. I owned a home when the market first crashed in 2008. I lost it. I lost it out of ignorance. Not knowing the law, not knowing the real estate business. Although the real estate business at that time is when it became extremely corrupt, where they were shutting down the doors all over the place. So that's when, status became like a thing, like, we're removing the middle class kind of thing. That gray area started becoming very clear. The wealthy stays here, the poor stays here, the workers stay there. I was just watching a show with Roseanne. I think I mentioned it in a previous thing. The Roseanne Barr podcast. She had, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. The Attorney General for Texas. And Paxton, I think. Is it Paxton? Anyway. She had him on the show, and they were discussing, corrupt politicians and all this other stuff, and how he had, he was, I guess they were trying to indict him or something weird like that, but he was vindicated and brought back, and it was all over the news, and it made a big deal. But talking about how the elitists have kind of taken over, in the sense where they've created a system where they shut out whoever they don't want. So this applies in the legal system, this applies in the real estate, and obviously in education, when you see certain colleges, how they make it so difficult to get into certain colleges, and how they make it so expensive, and how they, only if you have this kind of money can you afford this kind of education. But it's really not the education that they're getting, it's the privilege to participate in realms that you can't go to Wall Street if you didn't go to you had to go through certain educational systems to even qualify to even be seen at Wall Street as someone that can participate there. So my dangly little community college degree in business it started with community college. It ended in a regular university. But the point is that average Joe degree isn't what's going to get you into Wall Street. It would be the elite title that you're given because you were able to pay your way into getting in that place. And the same thing applies with our government. It's, can you afford to come in here so that you can have access to this? Because you're basically paying your way into those places. So it's like, how do you pay? You could pay with the money to gain admission. You could pay with how much work you're willing to do to gain admission. And it's like, how much are you willing to give to get into these worlds? When you decide you don't want to give to get into these worlds, they take that shit personally. So they make sure to keep you not going into these worlds. It's like, oh, you thought you were going to reject us? You thought, you didn't need us? We're going to make it hard for you. An unfair advantage. So it's like, you're supposed to depend on them. So it's like, if you don't want to get into these realities or if you're not willing to pay to get into these realities, then through the powers that be that we have, we won't even allow you into our doors. And you not being able to go into our doors would mean that you lose access to all these other benefits that you didn't realize you were getting when you were within our scope. And our scope would be like, you're giving your life away for a job. It's like, no, I can live off my own energy. I can live off the grid. I can live off of just my breath and my joy and my freedom, and my way of being sustains me. My way of being sustains me because it's not the title. I like you make yourself chosen. You give yourself the title. You give yourself the value. Because what you're doing is waiting to participate in a world that seeks to use you. So that then they can give you a title. And then you get the income for that title. And then that's how you pay your way into these next bracket worlds. But that's like, that's the trick. That is the trick. And the kids today, like my children's generation, not caring to be in those worlds and having an abundance of value and energy, not participating in those realms, it's like they're either going to find a way to funnel that energy to benefit them, or they're going to find a way to limit them from having that energy. That's how the so-called enemy of the matrix works. And so, removing the concept that they even have power, because they don't. All they had was an idea over your head that you needed to be validated by them to have the power that trumps them. So, if let's say you go through the wormholes of getting into like a Yale, right? You'll have access to their books, their practices, their how they go about getting certain benefits in the physical world, how to invest in order to have property, how to create a fund that sustains you for life based on their own. It's like being part of the club, right? It's like those that created the system you live up under can teach you how to have it for yourself if you're willing to pay for them to teach you to do it, to use their system. But what happens if you just have your own system and it's even more innovative than theirs, and it's even more proficient than theirs, and it's even more... But the thing is, most people don't get to that, because while you're building it, now that you're understanding it, you're creating it, they see the competition. They see that, oh damn, if they get a one leg up, their product... Oh, you know what's a great movie that shows this? If you haven't watched it, it's the new Wonka movie. It's based on Willy Wonka's history, how he became Willy Wonka, basically. It's with Timothy Chalamet. I think that's how you say his last name. Anywho, I don't want to give away the story, but I guess just this part will do. You have the main corporate moguls, I guess, of candy, of chocolate factory. But they're all in cahoots. And when Wonka shows up, they shut him down. They were able to shut down. It's like, it shows you exactly how it is. And it's like, unless you have a team that where you can create your own little system. You need a little advisor, a team, legal system to combat how they use the legal system. You need to understand the laws. You need to understand business. So you need to understand finance. So you can't do all that, even if you have a leg in on a lot of different aspects. You need an expert in that one field. It's like seeking protection, so you create your organization. And your organization consists of your own legal team, your own marketing team, because you got to combat whatever they come with. You're not the expert in marketing, for example. So if you can't market your business, you can't sell to the public, and the ones dominating that market are going to overpower you because their marketing team is powerful. So you need to be able to compete with the marketing. You need to be able to compete with the technology. You need to be able to compete with all of the branches that any one organization comes with. Any organization you see, they have all these different departments. They have a finance department. They have the CFO. They have the human resource department, who manages how many people we have working for us, how much they get paid, how well they work and interact as a network so that we can produce effectively whatever we're producing. So it becomes this like, you can't just be a small mom and pop business and be like, I'm going to sell on Etsy. You know what I mean? It's like, that's cute. And yes, you can make money selling on Etsy. But even when you do that, to get to that level of a corporation or an organization or a legacy for the future, not just for you to survive, eventually you need a team. You need somebody that's going to be able to make all the calls or place all the orders. You'll need somebody that's going to be able to ship out the orders. So it's like, it eventually grows into that. No one job stays that way. If the business is growing, that one job is going to expand. So let's say you're the only one doing accounting, and it's just, a small, husband and wife business, and you're doing the accounting for your business. But as the business grows, you might hire an assistant to help you with that, right? So you get an assistant accountant. And as it grows even further, you'll give that assistant accountant the position of the senior accountant. And now you're managing something different because the business is growing. Now you're getting a new department or a new product or a new whatever. So while you're busy doing that, you gave your first line accountant, your first assistant, you put them in the lead position, and you entrust in them that they're going to go ahead and get an assistant to do what they were doing. And they're going to train them to keep that system, that process going. So that becomes a department now. That eventually can turn into 20 accountants for one organization. You have one receiver. Now you have 20 receivers. It doesn't, it's like production when done in masses. Obviously, it's because the business is selling more, is doing more, is creating more, and the management of it has to be dispersed and allocated accurately. Oh, Lordy, why did I get into that? Didn't I say I was going to talk about all of my mistakes? All right, let's talk about a little bit of my mistakes financially. So, I got into real estate. And you go online, you learn everything online. You go to the library, you learn from the books, because you're not going to go into just, even if, let's say, I never worked for an organization in real estate. I never worked in real estate. But I have family that works in real estate that I've actually tried to talk with. I've actually, wanted to participate with. In other words, I'll intern with you. I'll come do, work to learn. I want to be an apprentice. But people like to keep the doors closed because it threatens what they're doing. And when people are into things that it's a facade, they want to make it look more glamorous than it is. They want to make it look more successful than it is. They don't easily let you in. And that's not just family, that goes for organizations as well. The more you know, the more threat you are. So when you get rejected from a company, it's not about all the time that you're not qualified. Sometimes it's that you're overqualified. I'm sure you know that. But they won't tell you that. It's that they know you deserve better, and they can't afford to give you better, and they can't afford to let you in on how little integrity they operate under. Because if you come in, you blow the house down, they lose their image. They lose the facade of how they got everyone else to believe that they are actually something of a big deal, which they're not. So I decided I'm going to learn, it can't be difficult. Whoever did it is saying they learned this, learned that strategy, learned the other. You go into learning all these strategies, and then you're like, okay, so all I need is a buyer, a seller, and some capital. Okay, here is a buyer. Or let's change it. Let's just make it more personal. Okay, I want to invest in property. I just have to buy the property, right? Or request a loan for it. Even when you request a loan for it, now you have to understand all your credit. Now you have to see what qualifies you, what doesn't, how many years you have to show proof of income, and how many of this and how many of that. They give you a whole list of criteria that you have to meet. Even if you were to come in with cash, 80% of the property, they would still want to know who's giving it to you and and then they give you a whole list of criteria of this investor that's giving you these funds. And it's like they don't just accept the funds. You have to have a trail of how those funds were even accumulated. And they purposely roadblock you. So it's like if you did provide all of this, they'll say you're still missing these things. And if you provide them this, they'll come up with these things that now you need. Oh, you got this, but you need that. There's always going to be a roadblock when they don't want you in a certain area. But then there's others that suddenly and magically they get it. What do you need? Oh, you need to be part of this organization or any organization. You're an independent individual. You don't work for an organization. You're not being backed. They want to know that you're being backed up. And they want you backed up by a company that has insurance, a company that pays you a wage. They want to know that you have job security. Job security means, in order for you to get a house, you have to be a prisoner to work. You can't be a free worker. You can't actually be a successful independent worker, even a contractor, whatever you want to call yourself. That doesn't come with the security that an organization comes with. So you don't get the access. Even if you have the funds, they'll find ways to say that you're not qualified. Now, that sounds pretty grim and dim, but that's the lessons I've learned. I could be wrong. Somebody can come and say to me, no, you're wrong, Kiss. That's not how it is. Do you have this? Yeah. Do you have that? Yeah. I want one person to come and say to me, if I have the capital and I have the property, like in other words, this is the property I want, this is the money I have, this is what I need so that I can create this, let me have it so that I can do it, right? They'll be like, here you go, do it now. Put me in the position to do it now, and I'll do it now. But you can't get to the position of do it now if they don't even let you participate. So that, I'm waiting for somebody to be like, oh yeah, here, we got the land, or here, we got the property, or here, we got the stuff. Now, build it. I'll be more than happy to build it. I'll be more than happy to tell you what kind of staff we need, what we're going, you know what I mean? And how many people we're going to need, and what exactly needs to get done for the production to be. So anyway, those are the things that I've come to realize to secure a future for my children where they don't have to figure out all the red flags, figure out all the blockades. I'm trying to get to what happened to accessing this thing. I've done this path, that path, that path, that path. Like I've gone all the paths. And even when I did the correct path according to the matrix, which is, get the career, work for the organization. Oh yeah, when I had the career and work for the organization, they were very quick to give me the funds. They were very quick to give me the property. They were very quick to give me the credit, all of it. It was like, there you go. Okay, I got it. But ignorance, all of a sudden, we have an economic crash. Who even knew what that was? I had no idea that the market was going to do that. But isn't it interesting that it does that the moment I get in the market? Meaning, I had just started real estate. To me, because the idea was purchase my first property, eventually rent it. Because I rented it for the first year. I bought it brand new. I bought my house brand new in 2006 or 2007. 2006. Brand new property. I got a small company to manage it and find me a tenant. I already had the business. I had the house rented for a year. First mistake I learned, be careful who you rent to. I don't know what they did, but there was glue on every doorknob. Glue on every doorknob. Bleach stains on the carpet. The laundry machine that was brand new. Wrappers, they got to take off the wrappers of the washer and dryer. Washer and dryer were destroyed, broken. these people did that. So what was, I had to learn what eviction was, how to evict them, go to court for this. I fought the case and I had the case perfect. I mean, based on every little detail that I covered, those people were going to pay me the deposit because they were fighting to not give me my deposit. I was fighting that I had to keep the deposit for all the damages. I had proof of the damages, proof that when I evicted them, whatever, all of that. I was missing one thing. The little paper that you get from the post office that's supposed to show that they signed for it. I had it, but I didn't bring it in my file to court. And the judge said to them, he said, it hurts me to do this because they deserve, meaning me, my ex-husband, I fought this case like an attorney myself. And I brought the evidence A, B, C, and D. I mean, all of it. I sat in front of that judge and he looked at me as not necessarily an equal, but as someone of a caliber that I wasn't there as just some, I don't know what I'm doing, please help me, I don't know what to do. No, I came prepared to get them evicted by the law the way I was supposed to. Because that one mistake, not having that one document, he had to give them the right of way. So I learned, make sure you have all your documents. Make sure you dot all your I's, you cross all your T's, right? I learned we lost our deposit, but we didn't lose the war. The judge even said to me, you did very well. I wish I could have given it to you because you were right. They should be giving you the deposit. But by law, that one little thing, hey, you have to have it. It's the way it is. Now, that was a very integrous judge, a very compassionate judge. And because of that, I was happy. To me, I had a victory. Even though I made that mistake, I still had a victory. And the victory for me was that I followed business to a T. My education and my research led me to know how to purchase a home, manage a property from cross country. The house was in Florida. I was living in California for a whole year. I was managing that property through my own little organization. I never met the tenants. Dozens of tenants were being vetted. And for some reason, what else did I learn? Get a better managing company. Because they shouldn't have let what apparently was a crackhead, from what I gather, do that. Needless to say, I got my house back. We got them evicted. We fixed up the house again. But instead of re-renting it, I ended up living in it. That was a mistake. But that was a mistake out of fear. And the fear was, I don't want to rent it to someone and go through that ordeal again. That was a big deal, to go to court and to have people fighting me, and the fear of, oh my God, I can lose my home. Like, when you don't know. Like, you have to go through experiences to understand what everything is, right? Had I known then what I know now, they would have never even thought to question whether or not I was keeping their deposit. They would have never even done that. But you live, you learn, right? So my point is, now when it comes to securing physical property or securing a legacy and physicality, when you make a dream kind of happen, and then it's taken away because of a lack of understanding. My house was taken away in the market crash a year later, like 2008, right? Had I known what I know now, I wouldn't have been bullied by the system or by the play on words and fake attorney letters or fake threats. I would have known that these were all strategies to bully me to give up my property out of fear. I can't afford it. Oh, but they're blocking you in every way. They say you need this and you get it. And then they say, sorry, no, you need that and you get it. And then they say, sorry, but you're going to... And they don't tell you that you don't even have to go through all that. But you do, because you don't know better. So eventually, my house was foreclosed on. And I lost it. And it was a very difficult, challenging lesson, because now you feel like a failure. But guess what also? That cozy organization that I worked for, when they gave me the property, I was no longer, at the time that I began to get foreclosed on, that the market crashed, was conveniently when I got out of the organization. I was in the military when I purchased my house. I was getting out of the military when I lost it. Isn't that interesting? It's like, oh, you don't participate with us anymore. I'm not saying that the military did that. I'm saying that the government and the military are one and the same, and there are certain kind of criteria and systems that once you're booted out of, or once you decide you no longer participate in, they feel, hey, look at that. They feel it's okay to exit you from that system. And you get exited from that system because you're not doing things how they want you to do it. You're not doing things by their rules. So in order to break the rules, to bend the rules, to overcome the limitations, you really have to know the game you're playing and how they play the game. When you think you're going in the game and you're going to play integriously, and you think you're going to play with people that are honest, you realize very quickly that a lot of these organizations are in cahoots. The bank is in cahoots with the realtors. The realtors are in cahoots with the licensors and the policy holders. They're in cahoots with legislation. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So it's like, if one group says we don't want these people to have this access, all these other accesses have to get denied. They have to deny you those things. And it's like, that's how they keep you out. But you have to know what system they're playing with, how they're playing it, and come up with a better system. That's called innovation. That's called creating your own organization, where and it's always going to be trial and error, but you'll never get to the level that organizations are if the only option they're giving you is participate in our organization in order for you to even be considered. No. Who made you the considerer? Who made you the one in charge here? So they're in charge because you're ignorant. They're in charge because you don't know what system. They're in charge because they bypassed all these systems. They bought out all these systems. And the way that they did it was corrupt. You're not doing it corrupt, but you're understanding what corrupt is. And when you understand corrupt and you know what's being done and how it's being done, believe you me, there's a way through. So anyways, not so much a reading, more of a channeled message. I hope you enjoyed. I'll come back with another message soon. Take care.